All right, welcome to the All Access podcast. And today I'm really excited because All Access team has grown. We have Paul Norell with us. Paul is our new Chief Impact Advisor, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means. But we have Paul with us today. Paul is just a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun doing this with you, Paul. And so I'm excited to dive more into your story, just introduce you to people and encourage people to connect with you, and then hear more about what you're doing today and kind of impact advising as a whole and all that fun stuff. So Paul, thanks for being on the team and thanks for joining this call.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It has been a lot of fun. I can tell you all the ways that I am so impressed with how this has been handled with such integrity that I'm just really happy to be on board. It's been already in this 1 month, just so many great conversations with amazing followers, and I love that. So it's a great fit for me, and I'm glad that I get to work with you, Lane, and just see your heart for this organization and for the different funds and 501c3s that are just run so excellent. It's really been great to get to know the people who are in charge of that as well.
Yeah.
Already.
That's my favorite part. As much as I do love advising, folks, helping people give, especially young professionals who are, just getting started and go, you know what, I want to make a bigger difference with my life outside of this, and helping them do that and connecting them with those groups you were just talking about, the programs in our portfolio. So
Right.
We have the best job in the world, I think. I love it. It's a lot of work. We see a lot of stuff in the field that is broken, but we're here to help. So Paul, tell us more about where you're from.
Sure. I was born and raised in Minneapolis, a little suburb called Minnetonka, Minnesota. And thing about people who live in Minnesota, nobody really ever moves to Minnesota, but nobody ever leaves Minnesota. So when I finally decided that I'd like to have a different experience, everybody's like, well, what's wrong with Minnesota? I'm like, well, I have lived here for 50 years. Doesn't that give me a free pass to get out of here? Do you want me to talk a little bit about my personal life, or
tell us. So I know you went to Oral Roberts.
Yes.
And
okay.
Then,
so the quick.
Yeah. Tell us about Kiki as well.
Yes, my wife. So I fortunately was raised in a great Christian family. My mother was incredible. She died at 94 years old, but both of my parents were very committed in their faith. And I had three older brothers. Two of them ended up being missionaries for YWAM in the Dominican Republic. So I was around that all the time. But I really think when I get to heaven, I'll say, when did I actually become a Christian? I think it was probably 4 years old. I'm banking on that one. But I did have to go through the whole thing when you go to college and say, well, what is it that I really believe? Or am I just believing what my parents taught me to believe? And so I went through that and landed back with a stronger than ever faith in Christ. And I've never looked back or had many doubts throughout my whole life and my career. I did go to Oral Roberts University, which was like crazy when you live in Minnesota to go out of state. But two of my brothers went there. They liked it. I didn't particularly like it. It was a good education, but I felt it was, a little legalistic. I've run into people since that know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I got through that, and while I was there, I met Kiki, my wife, who I stayed there for an extra year while I dated her, but then said I got to get back to Minneapolis, so I moved back there.
Where's Kiki from originally?
He is actually kind of born in New Jersey, down and lived a little first 12 years in Atlanta, and then dad moved up over to Tulsa,
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Got it.
And she went to Oklahoma State. So
Got it.
got married up in Minneapolis. It's a great place to raise a family. I have 3 kids, daughter that's now 33, son that's 30, and another son that's 28.
Nice.
Alex, Grant, and Cole. And so I'll get on the business side of it, but on the personal side, Kiki said, "It's just too cold here. We gotta get out of here." And I said, "Oh, okay," because I'm born and bred there. I don't feel it as much. I said, "Okay, well, if that's what we're gonna do, then we better start getting our kids interested in colleges in the South." And I kid you not, I ended up going with my daughter to 21 out of state college tours. And yeah. And
Any of those A&M?
everybody thought I was crazy. That's, almost a classic helicopter parent kind of thing. So, but she met some amazing girls who ended up in her wedding party.
Cool.
At Baylor University. She just came back from a meeting and said, Dad, this is where I want to go.
Wow.
And I couldn't have been happier. In fact, I said, I didn't really have the classic college experience, so I'm all in. I'm going. I'm buying season tickets. See, it was the RG3 days, and just loved it and had a blast. And we told our other boys they can go other places, but they ended up at Baylor too. So we had all 3 of our kids at Baylor. And when our last one left, we pretty much were walking behind him and packed up our everything we owned and sold our home in Minnesota and moved down to Texas. And so it was a total miracle, really. I mean, we ended up where all 3 of them graduated from Baylor, got jobs in the DFW area, and all married to great Christian spouses, and we're just amazingly blessed. And we now have 2 grandchildren, which is one's about 3.5, and the other one's 2, and one on the way. So it's been amazing how God has blessed, and just even the environment down here is just so incredible. I mean, you definitely can be way more open and comfortable with your faith, praying over every meal, just feeling that there's such a community here. I remember when I came down here that one of the first things people would say is, "Hey, nice to meet you. Where do you go to church?" And I was like, "Whoa, that's a little private." I mean, that's how you thought when you're up in Minnesota, and so I actually enjoyed that coming down here. And so on the professional side, I really was more on the for-profit. I started off in an ad agency that was a pretty big ad agency in Minneapolis. Ended up working at Nordic Track, the cross-country ski exercise machine, which was amazing experience. Almost killed me. It was so many things to do. I was running around like crazy, but it was a great experience. And then I ended up landing with this company called Novus Print Media, which was basically a broker of print ad space. And we were just a bunch of kids trying to figure out a good business. We'd be doing a lot of traveling out to New York to the publishers to say we can fill your excess space. And we grew the business to $350 million. And that was pretty unheard of. And so we ended up selling the company to a media holding company called Omnicom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a wild ride. We had a 4-year earn out. The first 2 years didn't go so well. We never had a down year in my 20 years there. And it was, completely an entrepreneurial startup business that we were just running as fast as we could. and trying to figure out things. We used to say we're, building the airplane as it's going down the runway kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what my life was like, really. So after we sold, I stayed on board. I was a CEO for another 2 or 3 years, and I stayed actually 6 more years after we sold. So I was there for 20 years, and really the last partner to leave. But then I was like, well, what do I want to do? What do I really like? And so I ended up being involved in some really fun, crazy, swing for the fence entrepreneurial businesses, a couple that worked and one that definitely did not work. And so when kind of coordinating this all together is when our last kid was leaving for Baylor, I was like, I'd love to be on the nonprofit side of things. I had read, Halftime by Bob Buford, and really resonated with me about going from success to significance. And so that's when I met Joel Smyer and said, hey, could you use a guy like me at NCF? So I was with the National Christian Foundation for about 3.5 years and loved it. But, I wasn't a lawyer. I'm not a financial advisor. So I knew there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And that was Lionheart Children's Academy. So that was using the space in churches for a child care facility, and certainly a Christian child care facility where the church makes some money. They bring in families that they wouldn't have brought in, and plus they can start to tell children about Christ. And so it's a great model, and did that for about 3 years, and then I got hooked up with Lane, and we had some great conversations, and we both kind of said this would be great to have me come on board, and that's where we're at right now. So I'm about a month into it, and totally loving it, and we're having a great time, and just trying to, maybe I'm taking away one of your questions, but just being able to one, be available and working with the people who are already members or givers. And then, of course, just kind of being an evangelist and spreading the word about All Access. I'd truly never seen anything like that. One, for using the analytics or the model to be able to boil it down to the best of the best. It is great to be transparent, having every 90 days your financial statement and an update on how things are progressing, and just really working for the giver and not just for the give-e, I guess. And I love that too. So just the integrity and what from everyone that I've met that knows Lane, is just amazing. It just it's given me another reason to say this was what I'm looking for, and what I hope I'll be here for many years to come. So
I hope so too, Paul.
One question, 10-minute answer.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And Paul, you're kind of a unicorn in a sense, in that you're not just another ministry guy, not to knock, just another ministry guys out there, but you're not. You've got like many of our members of our fund, we're all business. I'm from engineering, putting boats out the door. You come from business, and a lot of the members of our fund are in business. And so, entrepreneurs, investors. And so you've been there, done that. You have experience on the donor advised fund side, the tax side of giving, which is the most boring side. But I'm glad it's there. It's a great tool to help with that side. But we're here on the side of, okay, once you've given through a donor advised fund, where's it go after that? And we just live at such an incredible time of what can happen if it, depending on where it goes. And so we get to help people do that. So you are a wealth of wisdom and knowledge and helping people, advise donors and members of our fund. So I encourage members of our fund, if you haven't met Paul yet, to connect with Paul. Obviously, anybody is welcome to join our fund. But let's talk about what we're doing now, because over the last really 3 to 4 years, we have been really focused on the product itself. And we want to accelerate the Great Commission and Great Commandment using analytics. And we've given to, I think, 11 programs so far. I mean, we're getting close to $2 million granted, and really pretty minimum or virtually no fundraising efforts. We had our first fundraiser in November, just a few months ago. And, we focused purely on providing a great service. And now to really move the needle in these places, we got to get this in the hands of a lot more people, and we have to have the capacity to do that well. So Paul is here to help us do that. And our position really, as you mentioned, is as an impact advisor on the same side of the table, helping people give well. And so, I'm curious, Paul, what that's been like, the last month or so of you having those conversations with people and inviting people to the funds. Let's just talk about what it means to be an impact advisor.
Yeah. I mean, you see the, smaller, and then it gets bigger light bulbs going off of, okay, Paul's with this organization. He's going to talk to me about this. And, obviously for me, I want, I'm at that stage of life, whatever, that I want to, I want to learn about what they're doing, what their challenges are in life. And then we obviously get to what I'm involved in now with All Access. And couple of things that really light up for them is when you talk about the gift being 100% to All Access, and that it isn't going to this big machine that is supporting all of these employees. And in fact, it's not at all going to that, and it's going directly to those 8 or 10 funds that we have vetted out. As they start to go, oh wow, that's great. I mean, I even remember when my brothers were on the mission field, I'd say, I love supporting you guys, but what do you do with the money when I give it to you? I mean,
I think everybody deep down asks that.
Everybody, yeah. I'm the representative of. I'm speaking for the man. That it's like, what is happening with that? And a lot of it is, we have you need to trust us, and we have a history and all that stuff, and all that's great. But, seeing this, having 100% go to the ministry has been really cool. But everybody I talk to, in fact, usually the person will bring up, well, so how did you and Lane and any others, get paid? And we'll say, okay, well, glad you asked. We have this other account over here that a handful of people who, typically, I'm not even sure if this is right, Lane, but here's what I say is that, when you become a member, even if you came to us and said, I'd like to put money into the operations fund, we're kind of saying, well, why don't you let a year go by and see if we're meeting your expectations like you were on day one, and then we'll come to you and say, would you care to be involved in helping us out on the operations fund?
Yeah.
I've heard actually other people that I've talked to that have said they've been involved with other organizations where they will give 100%, and then the benefits or the different banquets that they would have, it would be 100. It would be all for operations. And I was like, wow, I don't know what I think about that, but I haven't, other than that, heard anybody else that does this. And I think it's just really important to be above reproach, with everything, Yeah. When I talk to somebody, I say, that Starbucks I just bought you, it's going to be a line item on next quarter's expense report,
Yep.
and that should be, you might not care, but it's there. We care, we want it to be all out, all transparent. So it's been refreshing to be able to take that position.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, when I was looking at the math on, okay, what financially would it take to end poverty, specifically extreme poverty, because global economists have taken a crack at calculating that. Back in 2009, Jeffrey Sachs said it would take, $175 billion. So pretty old data, but that's using a traditional aid model. So you inflate that to today's dollars. I mean, roughly $250 billion a year over the next 20 years to do that. Seems like a lot of money. Then you look at, okay, what are we already giving to charity? Just Americans alone. And it's already double that. And you go, okay, like what is happening here? And, the nonprofit sector has some quirks, and it's set up, unfortunately, in a way to that it's quirky. But we just thought, well, if we're starting something, what's the best way we could do it? And this is where we landed, the split account model. And, there's no good answer for overhead, really. If it's too small, you can't scale. You can't manage the rest of the money. Like if 5% is going overhead, you probably, and depending on the size, you probably struggle to manage the other 95% really well. If your overhead's too big, you're inefficient, and there's just no right answer ever. And so we just thought, well, let's let the donors decide that answer. So, have the split account, and really the operations side is supported by just a handful of, friends, family, a few corporate sponsors and businesses. And it's a pretty select group because we want all the other dollars going to the fund. And if you want us to be more efficient between the two funds, just pour as much as you can to the fund, and all of it goes to the field. And it's our job to find the most impactful things for you. And so it's, the reporting every expense, we just thought, well, why not? Let's try it. We haven't found a reason not to. It holds us accountable of like, hey, knowing everybody's going to see this. And I encourage more groups to actually heard of one in Atlanta that's doing that now. So it's cool. It's exciting, Paul, but I appreciate you sharing that. And I'd love to hear more about what excites you the most when it comes to like advising people, particularly on impact. I mean, you've advised people on donor advice funds before. You've been a donor yourself, but I'd just love to hear what excites you the most about the season right now.
Well, I was going to also mention from what you were saying too is it gave me more validation that now I've spent some time with the different ministries or organizations that are on our portfolio, and they're just thrilled to death about All Access. They're like, what else can I provide to you to be another soldier for us, and they just make a real point about how, boy, you really locked into a really great organization, and that this is something that we feel strongly about. So on both sides of the fence, I'm just getting nothing but positive feedback, which is awesome.
Well, that was another important thing too, Paul, because I was that program director in the field doing the reports, and I hear horror stories about fundee relationships where even a group in our portfolio got $1 million grant over the last few years from a very popular group, and they said they wouldn't do it again just because of how rough it was going through that process and how restricted it was. So we just have a really weird experience of being on the other side, on both sides really. And so we designed it to be a blessing to the groups in our portfolio. And, if they win, we win, just like a general contractor, subcontractor, an investor, a company, so that's very much the way we see it. So we designed it that way to where it's a great experience for them. That was our hope, at least.
Well, and to your other question was if what have I seen as I've come on board, and one of the things that is with NCF. I wasn't necessarily. It's more about processing the money that you want to give and making sure the most money is given to the organizations as opposed to the government. But here we're able to get down into the weeds and specifically help them pick the ones that they want and for them to feel confident that we've already done the work of analytics to boil it down to these great organizations. And I love that. I love that we're actually getting to help decide who they're going to be, and then see them personally do what we were hoping that money would do. And I also too, I know that part of this whole process is kind of a reporting back. You do the monitoring, or Lane, we'll get out there, hands, boots on the ground, but they need to come back with information that maybe is a pain for them. I don't know. But that's such an important part, and I think they're more than willing to do it based on your whole vision for this. So that's probably the greatest thing that I've experienced is from the giver to us to the organization that we have selected. All the people around there, it's kind of what I'd hope all charities and ministries would be like, or organizations. I'm learning all the vernacular of what what not to say or what to say. Are we officially cutting out the description ministry, or
I don't know. I don't. I mean, if it was in Lane's world, which we're not.
Lane's world, I like that.
Wayne's world, party time. Anybody? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. No, I mean, so it sounds cold, but I see organizations as vendors, including us. We are a means to an end. So I could care less about whatever name's on somebody's shirt or any of that, but we care deeply about those in need, spiritual and physical poverty. And so whoever can best help them, it's kind of like if you have a leaky toilet at your home, unless your brother is a plumber, you probably go out and find who can best fix that for you. Or if you have a much bigger project, like, hey, we are remodeling our home. It's very important, who the contractor we use for that. It's a big decision to make. Well, let's talk about the world, coming alongside God and him using us to redeem the world to himself. That's a big deal. And so people's lives are on the line. So who we give to is a big deal. And so, I don't know what we call them. They're programs, in our portfolio because they're specific time bound programs. So they start date, end date, a budget, specific number of activities, outputs. We don't give to organizations as a whole necessarily because, Big Life, for example, is in 170 plus countries. So what they do in Mexico, it's very different than what they're doing in the Middle East and South Asia, where we are focused. So I don't know. We're working on how to talk about what we do, but impact advising is a little unique in that we're not financial advisors, although we do have articles and stuff to help people with their finances. We're not a donor advised fund. We don't know the tax side of it, but when it comes to the impact, specifically spiritual and physical poverty, we know that pretty dang well. And so we get to help people with that. But as you've mentioned, I mean, these are people, we're here to help people, our members. So, I mean, it's not your regular, we talk about, like I was just got off the call with a guy whose son was in the hospital last week. And I mean, it is not irregular that stuff like that comes up. And so we're here to help people and, getting finances in line, getting their home life in line. You have to all that before you can really even think about how can we make an impact halfway around the world. So we're here to help with all of it. which is a lot of fun.
Well, one of the things that I brought up to you before I even came on board was just sometimes I felt, at least with my experience in the past, is that organizations, 501c3s, didn't really. I always felt they didn't feel the magnitude of that the person truly is giving. Giving that hard-earned dollar. It's they could do something else with it, and I feel that part of what we do and what you have wanted to happen is for people to be thanked and people to be noticed a little bit. I mean, it's not like, I know you got to give it freely, but it's nice to know that the organization that is receiving it truly appreciate what they are doing by selecting All Access to be one of their giving partners. And I've noticed that in the first month over and over, that's important to you. And I love that. That's another great thing that you just don't see. I used to get mad at my brother because I felt like he was a little slow with getting back to like friends of mine who had donated to it. I'm like, okay, they don't even know if you got it. You should just make sure that they know you've received it and how appreciative you are. And since then, he's gotten a lot better. So,
well, that's a part of the reason we, our first move in building our capacity to scale the fund, get it in front of more people so we can help more people out of extreme poverty, spiritual and physical, was getting somebody who can help care for our members well. And, because we both come from the donor side of things, that's really important. We both know the cost it takes to get that dollar. No dollars are free. It was all earned in some form or fashion by somebody. And so we don't take that lightly. And we don't want people in our fund or sponsors for them to feel like we aren't grateful, because we're super grateful. I get to go out and see it in the field, and I'm trying to do a better job of connecting the dots of the impact people are making, but it's huge. I mean, seeing the need and then seeing what can happen, it's awesome. So,
well, just because I can't remember the specifics of this analogy or example that has happened, say it again about the project that only took $20,000 versus 46,000 times more with someone else.
Yes, that was our very first program. So when we did all this back in 2019, 2020, when I was doing all this research on needing a tool like this to help people give well so we can accelerate this mission, we didn't know maybe there's a reason nobody's doing this. So we just tried it. So we didn't market this at all. We just, really friends and family of mine, we just pulled 20 grand together, ran it through our analytics, partnered with, we found Transform East Alliance. This is during COVID. And so I couldn't get over there. I had some friends with the IMB stuck in Calcutta go and evaluate them in person for me and say, hey, everything's lining up. I don't even think Paresh and Transform East Alliance knew that. But we did all this vetting. We mobilized 20 grand and helped them train 100 church planting coordinators. These are believers in the local church there who are trained to go and make disciples and plant churches in the unreached communities around them where there are no churches. And in just 1 year, they had already planted 243 churches among 97 unreached people groups with 1,500 new believers and with 20 grand. And so I happened to be in grad school at the time and connected with a lot of sending agencies. And so I was just curious, not that there's anything wrong with, well, there is a little bit wrong. If I was wrong in that I went to Haiti as a missionary because I wanted to be a missionary, had nothing to do with what was in the best interest of the Haitians. It was all about me being a missionary. And so I do challenge people to rethink why they're going, but there is a place for Western missionaries, particularly in theological education. But I just started surveying some sending agencies. Hey, what does it cost for your organization to achieve these same results that these guys did in India? And I think I asked 18 organizations. I got reliable data back from 7 of them. Between those 7, which were popular organizations that if I said people would know, on average, it cost about $88,000 per missionary unit, whether that's an individual or family, which is pretty average. That makes sense. It takes about 500 missionary units to plant about 100 churches. And that's not even exclusively in unreached, persecuted contexts like we're focused on. That's global. And so some places are easier than the other. So, that means basically one missionary is responsible for 0.2-ish churches per year. You do the math, and it would cost over $90 million to do what these guys did with 20 grand. And that's about 4,500 times the cost difference. And not that we're about just saving money, but what could we do if we had $90 million? Could we, basically end the gospel poverty in the Middle East, South Asia? I don't know. So all we're saying is that we think it can be done. The economics make sense. The resources are there. And we just need a tool to help people do that. And that's where we come in. Yep. So, well, I have one last question because I'm curious, and then we'll wrap it up. But as I've been advising donors the last few years, people giving well is hard. Like you said, there's 1.8 million nonprofits in the U.S. So who do we give to? How much? The tithe is a problem. I would call it a problem of like most Christians today think as Christians, we are legally supposed to give 10% to the local church. That's what we have to do. And that's just not true. We have a lot more freedom than that. So there's a lot of things that, I've just had conversations with donors about, but love to hear more from your experience with yourself, you and Kiki, or people you talk to about giving. What have been some of the problems, or maybe problems I don't even know is a problem?
Good question. What I've noticed is that when I go to some of the people that are my contacts that are a little bit older and maybe have been giving for a while, that they get a little bit rigid, or just they're kind of tapped, like they've been approached a lot, I would imagine. Yeah, and they kind of have this group of people or organizations that they use, and probably and definitely give a portion to the church, which is great. So they're not like, it's not like a fluid, let's roll 30% off by giving list and bring in some new people. Mm-hmm. So that tends to happen. So then when you come along with all access, they kind of like, hey, good luck. That's nice, but maybe not for me, which is, again, everybody's got their own journey, and we shouldn't expect anything. But what is cool is when we have some of the meetings I've had with, let's call it 30 to 40 years old, or maybe 25 to 35, is they haven't locked that down yet. So they might not have as much because their careers haven't developed as much as it will. They're a lot more open to something new. So I just want to be able to spend some time thinking about how do I better build my relationship and help them think through a new idea, a new place to go.
Yeah. And in the defense of older generations, I mean, what we're doing today wasn't really possible 10, 15 years ago. Just the data wasn't there. And so,
good point.
30 years ago, the best thing you could do was give to your local church. And as far as when it comes to global missions and what we're doing. So yeah. And especially here in Dallas, I mean, everybody's so tapped. I mean, we get approached all the time. I get asked for like $250,000 via text the other day, which is crazy, but yeah, it's a problem. So personally, I kind of use All Access as a filter. Like, hey, I'm a part of this fund. This is where it goes. If I get approached or hear about an organization, I send it through the filter. I know a lot of other guys in the fund use it that way. So, yeah, it's, like I said, I think 1.8 million nonprofits. So,
I would encourage, as being here for just a short while, I would encourage us to, even though it's more work, is that a certain, just have it in our mind. It doesn't have to be hard and fast, but to have 1, 2, or 3 organizations roll off and bring on something new. And just because it would be easy to do the same thing and just kind of keep the same ones. They're good, so let's keep going. Well, after a couple, 3 years as part of our portfolio, I'm getting the vibe that from others that they would love to see it to be vibrant, to be new. So that's one of the recommendations I would give in my early time here.
Yeah, that is our I mean, like I said, everything we fund are programs. So it's like if you're developing building a housing community, at some point that will be complete. So all of our programs, whether they're a year long or 5 years long, have a end date, and every year we reanalyze. So right now we're building a master list of all the organizations we want to look at this year. We looked at 1,302 last year, and we'll update the portfolio quarterly. If the ones in the portfolio are continuing to be the top that we have the amount to fund, then they'll be in. Usually things change though. I mean, we've had programs. So we completed our program with Aqua Africa in South Sudan. We completed our program with Farm Stew in South Sudan. For Africa, handed off their water program to another organization to focus on their leadership academy. And so they came out of the portfolio. So things change all the time. Leadership changes. So the good news, the hope is as the fund grows, we get more members, we can keep adding to our portfolio, some fresh blood, and even break off into more funds, like a water fund, a gospel access fund. So there's room for fresh blood for sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But well, cool, Paul. Well, I so glad you're on the team, and this has been a lot of fun. You're a huge blessing to our members, and I encourage folks, if you don't know Paul, get to know Paul. He's here to help. I'm here to help, and but I appreciate you taking the time to do this today.
Sure, and if anybody just wants to text me or email me, I'll set up a time that works for you, and we'll go grab a coffee or a lunch. That would be great.
Let's do it. All right, Paul. I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you.